Everyone, and thank you so very much for joining us today. We are live with JP de Villiers, not for 30 minutes, as was said, but brace yourself for 45 minutes of energy, enthusiasms, insights from people that we know him as the comeback kid, because he's not a kid anymore, but definitely he has shown more courage and strength in the face of adversity than few people that I've ever met. So it's a pleasure to have you again, JP, as one of our keynotes. You were scheduled to be live with us in London, but because we couldn't have the show running as we thought we would last week, we definitely moved to an online convention, and you are there with us. Thank you so very much, JP.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here.
Thank you. People know you as a peak performance coach, as a keynote, as an inspirer. You've inspired CEOs, managers, and you're definitely the people following you. Today, we will be touching on being a better leader and influencer in business in this unprecedented times of uncertainty, when information and news is bombarded to us with bad news, death toll every day. What are we going to do next week? Are we still going to be confined? What's going to happen next month? There's lots of uncertainties. And before we dive into all of this, I'd like people who, for some, do not know you yet, please give us a little bit of your background, where you come from, and why you are one of the most fitted people on earth right now to talk about this topic.
So, first of all, what we're going through right now, if we work backwards and reverse engineer, is a time of challenge, a time of massive uncertainty, and ultimately fear. When we feel challenged, we feel fear. When we feel adversity, we feel fear. And I had a lot of fear growing up because of a lack of uncertainty, but because of a lot of things that I did in my life, I was able to slowly stack up evidence that actually I could feel certain. And actually, I was certain that I could do certain things in my life. And now I've become, over many years of taking ideas through knowledge, through mentors, through role models, through conversations with inspiring people, I've taken these ideas and I've put many ideas into practice over the years. And those things that have worked for me and I've latched on to them, I've kept practicing and kept practicing until eventually those things became part of my nature, part of my DNA. And now, faced with this challenge, I just don't see a challenge. I'm not saying that I don't see this suffering, Jean-Guy. I'm not saying that I don't see people sad and people losing their lives and families being affected, but I don't feel the suffering. I see it objectively because I know that I can see things out of force, because if something happens in front of you, you're forced to see it. But I can choose whether I want to feel it or how I want to feel it. And I didn't know this growing up. Today I live this life of teaching certainty, a life of being a student of certainty. As a speaker and a coach, and I've spoken in 16 different countries, and like you said, I've working with all these amazing people. But growing up in Cape Town, South Africa, I was one of the most uncertain kids you would have ever seen. I hid away from everyone. I hid away from the popular kids. I hid away from bullies. And I just started to, because we get good at whatever we practice in business and in life, good or bad, whatever we're practicing, we become good at. And I became very good at being shy and timid. And, I used to be a cyclist for many years. And when I became a coach in my 20s, I started to realize the power of internal dialogue and language. And I was able to look back at my life as a cyclist and realize that, man, my only goal every single time I raced was to stick with the winners. And I remember thinking every day, today I'm going to try and stick with the winners. So now I know what I didn't know, which is when you say the word try, it means you don't really believe that you can do it. You give yourself permission to fail. But by me saying that I'm going to try and stick with the winners, automatically, already before I climbed on my bicycle, I disqualified myself from being one of those. So once again, I lived a very different life to what I live now. And today I'm still a student, but I'm a rock solid, certain student. And I know that I can get through anything, including being in a hit and run accident last year when I was doing a 1,000-mile cycle challenge across the UK. And after 800 and something miles, I was hit by a drunk driver, thrown off the road, bike shattered to pieces and left for dead. That to me was a challenge, but I didn't feel like a victim because of this level of certainty and everything that I've learned. So that's me today, going back to my childhood. It wasn't the worst childhood in the world. I had some awesome friends. I had some awesome moments with my family, but there were a lot of things that were missing. I went to 8 different schools. I moved to 5 different towns. I had a lot of bullying in school because of lack of certainty, because of a lack of security. My father tried to commit suicide 7 times. On the 8th time, he was successful. It wasn't it wasn't the worst life, but I wouldn't wish it upon anyone else, because all I ever thought growing up, I had one consistent thought at grade 1, grade 5, grade 8 was how many years left until I become an adult. I literally wished, and I'm not even exaggerating, I wished my entire childhood away. I just wanted it to be over. I just wanted to be an adult and create my own rules and set my own boundaries and live by my own standards and live by my own terms and not be told that I am this or I'm not this or that I can't do this, etc. So what I did was I took this life and I accepted it, but I started to find ways to run away from that reality and chase a different reality. So if you look at business, right, most of the time we start a business or we build a business because we're running away from something, or maybe walking away from something, and we're chasing something. But I became obsessive about that chasing. So I fully immersed myself into things that made me feel good, so that it didn't matter what was going on at home or at school, or my best friends turning on me all of a sudden. They want to bully me because I was an easy target, and not understanding why is this happening to me. And I fell in love with sport. And I had the worst bike and I had the worst helmet, or one of the worst, but I did it every day because I loved it. Even though I had such a bad mental state, I would still show up, and I would get lost or fifth lost or whatever. And I kept showing up because I loved it. And to this day, I still believe that regardless of where you're at in life, suffering, surviving, or thriving, you've got to do what you love. If you want to have the best life, you've got to do what you love. And I did that, and I fully immersed myself in it. And it became, without me knowing it, my first coping mechanism. Now, in a peak performance world, you call that a strategy. In business world, you'd call it a strategy. Find something that works and do it over and over again. But for me, it wasn't even about that. It was about survival. So I found a coping mechanism to survive. But then at 19 years old, I was gifted another coping mechanism. My cousin Mark invited me to a nightclub called Adrenaline in Cape Town.
Indeed.
And I experienced girls and clubs and drugs and just hedonism. And it was incredible because all I ever knew up until that point was a handful of friends and my bike. And now I was barbecuing in the sun and discoing. And very quickly, I realized that I wasn't going to be a professional cyclist anymore, or I wasn't going to get to being a professional cyclist. So what I did was I said, you know what, I'll take a break from my coping mechanism, which was cycling. And I'll start having a bit of fun. I was like, this is what a teenager feels like. And once again, because you get good at whatever you practiced, all I'd ever practiced to get away from the life that I was experiencing was immerse yourself, jump in the deep end of something that you enjoyed. So I jumped in the deep end in partying. And I just partied every week. And I realized I needed to have a life in that life. And I became a DJ. And I realized I was never going to be successful as a DJ in Cape Town, because I looked at the top DJs. They talk about perspective, and they were the top DJs. And then during the week, they were having full-time jobs. And I thought, that's not like, there's got to be something bigger than that, like you're doing a part-time DJ gig, even though you're the most celebrated DJ in South Africa. So I thought, you know what, I can get to the UK. And I looked for a way out of Cape Town. And Tony Robbins, one of my greatest mentors, always says that it's never a lack of resources when you look at business challenges or life challenges. It's always a lack of resourcefulness. Are you willing to go all in on your thinking and explore the options? And I explored an option. My grandfather was from the UK. I knew I could get a loan for a visa from my mother. I could get to the UK, go on a plane for the first time in my life at 20 on my own, and got to the UK, worked in a chicken factory, then a dog food factory, then a pub, then a bar, then became manager, then started DJing. And I was still in this life at the age of 23. And because I was still living this all in life, as I still am today, just in a healthier way, at the age of 23, I ended up in Riga, Latvia, DJing on New Year's Eve to about 2,500 people. Right? To me, I'd made it. You see, I came from rock bottom in my head, and now I was a rock star. I was being asked to kiss girls. I was being offered drugs. I was, doing drugs, smoking, drinking cocktails. I had my own VIP room. I had what do you call it, a bottomless tab. And the next morning, I had one of the most pivotal moments in my life. I'm not good at a lot of things, but I've always been very good at being aware. It's almost like I've always been able to watch life from the pavilion. Even when I was a kid, I felt like a grown-up watching everyone around me. And in this moment, even though I had no self-education in 23 years of my life, I went through school education, and that is it. No one ever talked to me about personal development or positive mindset or anything. But I just knew in that moment that at 23 years old, if I didn't start changing my life for the better and taking control of everything in my life, then looking back to when I was 13, when I lost my father to suicide, I made a very clear connection that I was heading in the same direction. Maybe not to suicide, but to suffering. I was on my way to suffering, and here's why. This is the moment of awareness that I had. I realized that my father's whole life, because he had a fear of abandonment, because his own mother left him in an orphanage so she could move to the UK. So he had this fear of abandonment. So all he ever tried to do was consume, so that he would feel enough. And I realized at 23, Jean-Guy, I was doing exactly the same. I got goosebumps now just thinking about it. And I've said this so many times, but I'd become an expert world champion at consuming. You see, I had consumed popularity, small fame in the DJ world, significance, acceptance. People liked me, people loved me. And then I was also consuming other things, right, that came involved with being a hedonist. And I was consuming and consuming and consuming. And the problem is, when you're consuming from your environment and you're consuming from others, when your environment is gone and you're stuck in a room and everyone is gone, you have nothing left to consume. So if you have nothing to put in your cup, what now happens? You end up with an empty cup. And if you can't consume food, you end up starving. So I woke up in the next morning and I felt empty. And I realized that I was getting my life wrong. So with this moment of awareness, I thought, I came to the UK on my own. I can't blame anyone for where I am. So if I can figure out how to, in 3 years in the UK, get my life very wrong for me, no judgment on anyone else, I must be able to figure out how to get it right. How can I be the best version of myself, not the worst? Because I've done the worst and I don't like it. So at 23 years old, I went to work on me. And every day in every way, I looked for ways to be better. And after 2.5 years, I felt truly limitless because I just focused on me. No one else. Didn't want to be a coach, a speaker, an influencer. For 2.5 years, I focused on me and I felt limitless. And then I felt, man, now that I believe I can do anything, have anything, be anything, who do I want to be? And I thought, I want to be the catalyst for other people changing their lives. And my father's death drove me. If he knew what I knew, maybe, just maybe, because nothing's guaranteed, but maybe, just maybe, he'd still be around. And for almost 2 decades, that's what I've been doing. Helping people heal themselves, get out of their own way, and also raise their energy and vibration so that they can live their best lives.
Well done. Well done. And I
Thank
know you've worked with some leaders, some influencers who, like you, during your times as an athlete or as an EJ, were getting all this feedback from their surrounding. They felt meaningful. However, they realized it was limited.
yeah.
And you, as the observer that you are, uh, looking through things, um, you identified 4 areas of influence. Could you get into that?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd go back a little bit and I say, yes, the people that I generally work with are mid 30s to mid 50s, and they've reached a point where they're frustrated or disappointed because they're doing well or they feel successful, but they know inside they can do more or they've got more to give to the world, etc. And usually what happens is, I'm very much generalizing here, but usually what happens is they see success in their life, and success is on the outside of us, but they don't feel success on the inside, which is not success, is fulfillment. So what I do through giving a different perspective, helping people get clarity on their goals and their values and their visions and stuff and their dreams and desires, is I help them go from outside to inside and help them realize what is it that makes them fulfilled. And for you to truly reach your limitless self, you need to have your cup full, right? So if I have a cup and I want to put as much influence or weight into the power or significance of that cup, I want to fill that cup to the brim. Yes. The more you fill that cup, the more useful, the more powerful it is, the more of an asset it is. So to get my clients to, and this is for anyone here, to get yourself to be full or fulfilled or to feel as empowered as possible, you need to look at every single way in which you can influence yourself to be full or influence yourself to the highest degree. And I've coached in so many different ways. I mean, I started my career because I'd done sport as a kid. When I was 25 now, I became a personal trainer. That was my first way of coaching, then general life coaching. Then as I started to work with more successful high performers, I became a high performance coach. And I'm on my 5th book now, and there's many different vehicles in which I do it. But everything that I've learned and everything that I've experienced in my own life that's worked for me and that I've shared with others, I've been able to put those areas of influence into 4 pillars. And that's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And if you think of it like a triangle, if you want to fill up your cup and literally don't forget everything else in your life, forget your business, focus just on you, like I did for 2.5 years, because when you fill you fill everything around you. When you fill your cup, that overflow, because you're always learning and you're always growing and you're meditating and you're keeping fit, you've got this constant overflow. That is what should go to your managers, to your leaders, to your employees, to your clients. Not, oh, I've got a little bit left in my cup, let me just, give it. No. Like, fill you first, then give the overflow to others. So how you feel you is by looking at yourself physically. On the bottom, the foundation level of influencing yourself is to move your body. I know it sounds simple, hey, but you'd think it's easy, but it's not, because still to this day, after having spoke to thousands of people and coached hundreds of people one-to-one, I'm like, how does fitness make you feel? Every time they say, good, amazing, alive, fresh. But yet people don't move every day. So for me, I'm, what's the word or the saying, chalk or cheese? Like, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And if someone wants to work with me one-to-one, the first rule I have is you have to exercise every day. If you're not exercising every day, what that means is you're not willing to influence yourself to the highest degree. What you want is the convenience of success without the inconvenience of what it's going to take. And I don't give away magic pills. Most people, I don't spray magic dust on people. Most people know that if you exercise every day, you're going to have a higher ability to influence yourself emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and you're going to be more influential in your business, in your community, in your family, because you're going to be more inspiring. And that's the one thing everyone wants to be led towards: inspiration. No human being in the world doesn't want to be inspired. So number one, it's physical influence. And because of a lack of time, I'm just going to stop there. But this is not rocket science, right? It's common sense. But unfortunately, common sense isn't that common. So sometimes I sometimes say to people that I don't actually teach anything. I don't teach anything. I just remind people of what they already know. And I say it in a way that hopefully they act on that awareness, or they act sooner. But physical influence is just every single way in which you can influence your physical self: your hydration, your nutrition, your breath, and your body. Stretching, cardio, whatever. I'm not going to get into that, right? That's child's play. Inspirational leadership is grown-ups work. So I'm not going to spend time talking about the child's play stuff. Just move your body every day. Find a way to do it. No excuses, non-negotiable. Because like your success should be non-negotiable, your legacy should be non-negotiable, whatever that means for you, your fulfillment should be non-negotiable. Hey, start from the ground up. If you want to have those things on the outside and create what you want to create, start on the inside, and your movement and self-care, which really is self-love, that should be non-negotiable too. So next up the triangle, once you've now put a non-negotiable action in place and you're in momentum in the physical, you now start to, by default, you start to influence your emotional. And most people know that if you are physically fit, that you have more emotional strength. Would you agree?
Yes.
People that run, people that train, people that lift weights, there are more emotionally fitter, stronger, healthier, and more emotionally well, which is why when it comes to mental health, which is an emotional thing, right? On a basic level of mental health, I'm not talking about clinical or, you've been diagnosed, you just feel mentally unwell. The first thing you need to do is go back to basics, go back to the physical. I'm actually doing an interview with someone that works in a psychiatric ward. And we're going to be having a conversation and sharing with my audience about why they prescribe fitness to all of their patients, and how every single time one of them says, I did exercise this morning, I feel better. And when they haven't done the exercise, I said, oh, do they feel unwell? They said, no, when they don't do the exercise, they lose it sometimes, like they go crazy. So once again, you want emotional wellness, emotional health, you've got to start on the physical. But once you get to emotional and you're already doing the physical, there are other things. Like number one, once again, it's simple, but it's not common sense, apparently. It's to be grateful. When you are in a situation like we're in right now, coronavirus, if you are focusing on lack, you're never going to act from love. If you're in business right now and you are focusing on what's going wrong, you're not going to see, or you're going to lose sight of what is still going right in your business. Don't look so hard at the things that are messing up that you forget to look at the people that are still there waiting for you to show up every day, every day, every day. I mean, I am more challenged now in my business than I've ever been not just because of coronavirus, but 10 months ago, I almost lost my life, and I lost, as a speaker and coach, my ability to earn any money whatsoever as an artist, So I am in this place right now where I could easily retract. But because I have this emotional mastery, I know number one thing to focus on right now is not what's missing, but what is still here. Mm-hmm. Not on who's missing, potential future clients, students, etc., but on the people that still are in my life, that are my audience, that listen to me on social media, that turn up to my events, my people in my Best Life MBA coaching community. So you can go on social media right now and you can look that I've done more content over the last week than I've ever done in 7 days in my career. because I'm operating from a place of gratitude and love. And therefore it strengthens us emotionally to believe that, hey, we're okay. And when we believe that we're okay, we don't want to consume, we want to contribute. So if you go back to when I was 23 years old, I was living this life of consumption, of consumption, of consumption. If you go back 10 years prior to that, my father was consumption, 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 but he wasn't grateful for what he had. He kept focusing on the things that were missing. I was doing the same thing. So what I've learned since I was 23 years old, and there's been a long journey, right? I'm almost 40 now, is that gratitude is one of the most powerful things for you to have, or it's the most powerful state for you to live in, because when you're not focused on yourself, you can only be focused on others. You can only be focused on giving, on contributing. And right now, our businesses, our lives, our families need us to be mega grateful as leaders, so that we're not focused on ourselves. And we are running our lives and our business, even in survival, we're running it with a primary question: how can I serve? How can I help? How can I be there for someone else? So that's gratitude. Next thing on emotional mastery is meditation. You want to master your emotions, learn to meditate, learn to sit, learn to breathe, learn to get present. Why? Because if you are emotionally unraveled, and I'll make this quick one, if you're emotionally unraveled, it means you're either in your past or your future. For you to feel emotionally out of balance, you have to be thinking about something that you are scared of happening in the future, or you have to be thinking of something that has already happened in the past. And in the present, nothing is wrong. Even if someone is going through a divorce right now, meaning something is going to happen in the future, or something has just recently happened. Even if someone has cancer, meaning they had a diagnosis yesterday, or they're scared about death, potential death in the future. All of these things are future or past or future based. But in the present moment, there is nothing wrong. Everyone listening to this, know that right now in this second, let me count this: 1, 2. In that gap, nothing is wrong with your life. And the only way you get good at understanding that that is the only reality that exists, there to there. And now already, after I've said that, that moment is gone. So if you can sit in that present moment, you start to have this belief that everything is on its way, everything is okay, nothing is wrong, everything is as it should be, because you're good at living in the present moment. And that's why I always joke that monks, you just see them, they look the same all the time. Because they just don't have an attachment to the past or future, because they spend all their time in the present. Only time you get a monk to I don't know, have a reaction or a sad or a happy face is in the moment, say something funny or not so funny to them, right? So, and I've spent time with monks, but meditation is key. Every single leader, and no, every human being, but for this conversation, everyone that wants to be a great leader has to lead themselves and influence themselves first. And if you can't, think about this very carefully. And this shocks me when, the reality of this. Most people can't even influence themselves to sit down for 5 minutes, yet they want to build an empire. If you can't actually control your emotions and your mind and your physical self to sit down for 5, 10, or 15 minutes, what else are you not doing in your business or your life? So meditation, yes, go for it.
It reminds me of a quote. A monk was asked, giving a presentation, how long should we meditate every day? And the monk said, 1 hour. You should meditate every day 1 hour, except if you're super busy. And if you are super busy, then you should meditate 2 hours. It's true that a lot of people will follow your first advice, and they will train, they will be in the movement. And if they get that routine, they will have the discipline and they will practice daily. Great. They will hopefully get more in shape, more fit. but they're forgetting that muscle. It's not really a muscle, but their brain, and how to exercise the brain. So I'm conscious of time, and we still have 15 more minutes, and I'd like to get into resiliency and also inspiring team to greatness. We have so many things to cover. This session is not going to fill it all, but one example, one very practical example on how to help people, because something that can be the hardest for some Westerners is meditate without a pen, without notepads, because the moment you close your eyes and you say, oh, I meditate, I'm in that moment, it's fantastic, it's beautiful. Oh yeah, I have that idea, I'm going to write something.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to call this person. How do you keep in that moment for as long as possible? In a few words.
So first of all, two things. So the other two sections of influence are mental and spiritual.
Yes.
Mental is just be a student of life. Never ever claim to know everything. Never think that you know or that you're at your best. Be an obsessive, with a healthy obsession, be an obsessive student of life. Go to conferences, go to events, seminars, programs, workshops, get a mentor, get a role model, get 10 of them. Because the one thing that you learn tomorrow might be the thing that changes the whole trajectory of your life and business, or business and life. And then the top of the pyramid, once you get to physical, emotional, mental, and now you're blessed enough to live at the spiritual level, it's to live as an altruist and to live your life, not about you. A lot of people don't understand me, the way I show up, the way I speak. But if they truly know me, they'll know that my life is not about me. You see, my recovery, and we'll come to this now, my recovery from my accident was not about me, because I live at that spiritual level and I look to always serve in whatever I do, in wherever I go. So that's that for the 4 areas of influence.
Yes.
So to come back to your meditation thing, just now you said, oh yeah, they know how to do this, but they don't do the brain stuff, or they don't work this muscle. And you said it's not a muscle. You're right, it's not a muscle. But like building muscle, it's getting good at whatever you practice. That's why you go to the gym, because you want to get better at that thing that you're repetitively practicing. And that really was the answer to your question in meditation, which is, in the beginning, meditation is hard. There is no good meditation. There is no bad meditation. There is just you facing yourself. So when you aren't able to sit down, that is you getting in your own way. When you aren't able to sit still, that is your body or your emotions getting in the way of you calming your mind. So the number one rule with meditation is understand that you cannot judge a meditation. It just is what it is. And then, like the brain, like the muscle in the gym, start on 5 minutes, then go 10. Then look, I'm in isolation right now. I'm honestly doing 3 to 4 hours of meditation a day. If you had told me this 4 years ago, I would laugh in your face and say I could never sit for that long. Because I started my meditation journey maybe a decade ago, 5 minutes. And there were 5 terrible minutes. And then it became 10. And then I used Headspace app. And then it was the Calm app, because I started to get bored of Headspace. And I did 10 minutes for a long time. And then eventually I was like, okay, let's do 15, then 20, then 30. Now, if I don't sit down for an hour, many years later, I feel like I haven't meditated. So that's the first thing. You get good at whatever you practice. Don't make it bigger than it is. Just look at what you can do in a way that it's progress for you. If you've never meditated consistently and you're trying to meditate every day for a half an hour, I know there's going to be exceptions to this, but I'm telling you, you're going to fail. That's a stupid goal. If you can meditate every day for 60 seconds, for 30 days, would that be better than how you were previously showing up? Most people would say, yeah, if I do it every day, non-negotiably 60 seconds, like just 10 breaths over a minute every day without fail. If you can achieve that, then go to 2 minutes, then 5, then 10. And there's lots of other things I can share, like the how of you meditating comes down to the why you meditate. You've got to have a very clear intention of why you're doing it. For example, if you're a business leader, you should be meditating. One of your many reasons should be because I want to be the greatest inspiration to others today. As I lead my people, I need to lead myself, because how can I expect them to lead themselves in the right direction if I can't even do the same? That's a hypocrite, right? It's incongruent. You can't, it's talking one thing and walking in another direction. So there's the why for meditating, and increasing your why for doing it, and understanding the benefits of it, and researching the evidence behind meditation. But last thing I'll say on meditation, it's this: just don't judge yourself when you're meditating. If you have a thought, where most people go wrong, because no one wants to be judged, and we will actually walk away from places that we are judged in life. And a lot of people try meditation. Hey, but it's one of the most powerful tools in the world, right? If it was easy, everyone would be levitating down the street. It's not the case. So you've got to understand that it's difficult, but most people fail and don't do it again because they try, they think too much, and they judge themselves for thinking, and they say, I'm just not good at meditation. But that's not because of the meditation, it's because they've judged it. So the number one rule, or the most important thing when you're sitting every day, is have a thought, observe the thought, don't judge the thought, and then come back. And every single time you come back to your breath, that is a victory. You've just won over yourself. And every single time you come back, that is a vote for the best version of you. You've just placed a vote for the best version of you. Now, if you can have an hour meditation and you have to come back 100 times from thinking, imagine that. You've just created 100 votes for your best self. Now, over time, you're going to be very masterful at that.
One thing, and we have about 5-7 more minutes. I'd like to get into the business aspect of it, because there's lots of spa owners, spa managers listening to us, and they want to know how they can be better leaders for their team. But also there's this topic of resiliency, and I cannot ignore that comment from Ray Vogler, who said, oddly, I received a cancer diagnosis yesterday. Somehow this is serendipity to hear you use this example on how to be present in the moment. I'm not sure how to wrap my brain around this. So if for Ray or for others, they thought that so far they had it bad, now with this coronavirus, and now for Ray with this cancer diagnosis, it's getting worse and worse. How do you get back on your feet with that? How you build resiliency to continue carrying on for you and others around you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, Ray, my heart goes out to you and to anyone else suffering right now. And I think that a 5-minute answer, I almost feel reluctant to give it because it's not going to do you justice. But please feel free to connect with me on social media, and I'll see if there's any other way that I can help you. But the first thing that comes to mind, because there's so much I want to share with you and everyone needing to be more resilient and more optimistic right now, it's 2 things. In the time that we have, I think I'll just go through those 2 things. Number one, we can't control what happens to us in life, but we can always control the meaning that we give that thing. So whether it's you getting cancer, or whether it was me almost losing my life last year in this accident, or whether we're all going through coronavirus right now, whatever it is that we're looking at and we're having to face, we now have to hold ourselves responsible for the meaning that we give it. If you give the meaning of what you're going through, why me? And that's the meaning that you give it, you have to face the truth that no one forced you to have that belief. No one in the world, in 7.5 billion people, said, this is what you're going to believe about your situation. Why is this happening to me? We have chosen that. Now, sometimes it's very difficult to have anything else. or have another belief because we don't have the right people around us. This is why events like this and coaching and having the right people around you is so crucial to your thinking, or at least thinking in the best way, because these people influence you. But it's looking to create a powerful meaning. Now, I don't say this lightly, Ray. I mean it, and I have the right to say this because it's been something that I've been thinking about for most of my adult life, from probably mid-20s. I have these moments where I ask myself, I question everything. And sometimes I just walk and I ask myself loads of questions. And because I've had cancer in my life and I lost my cousin, and I've asked myself on a few occasions, if I had to get cancer, what would I do? And I've just have always believed, and who knows what might happen in the future, but I've always believed that if that day comes, I will say there are so many people suffering with this. Let me be a force for good. Let me do my very best, even in my own suffering, to influence people to hopefully feel better in their suffering, and to use my suffering as a story that can hopefully make people be successful, through whatever they're going through. To take my pain and to use my voice to turn that pain into a power. I know friends that are motivational speakers because they've had both of their legs and one of their arms blown off in an IED in Afghanistan on Christmas Eve. I've got a friend or someone I know has MS, and she is a coach and speaker and she can't walk properly. There's a lot of people in life that have stories, but what they do, and I learned this from one of my greatest teachers, Miss Lisa Nichols. She said, stand on your story, don't stay in your story. And there's a very big difference. So number one, I would just, and I once again, I don't say this lightly, right? Because you've had this cancer diagnosis. I haven't, but I just am speaking from my heart and from my truth. And that's what I've always done. And I hope you can take some positivity from that, Ray. Obviously I can't see you right now, but try and find the meaning. How can I create? It's not saying, oh, where's the lesson here in this case? It's how can I create? We always have the ability to choose, to create, to curate our reality. Try or do your best to create a powerful meaning for what you're going through. Maybe it's because you've been too fast in life that now you need to slow down. Maybe it's because you weren't being honest with yourself and you created a state of dis-ease that now you need to be more truthful to yourself and start doing what your heart desires. I don't know, and I don't know you well enough, but there's many different ways which you can find a powerful meaning. Second thing, to everyone being in a moment of needing to be resilient and be positive, I've been sharing this with my clients over the last few days and few weeks. It's to take every single day, one day at a time. Because the more we look into our future, the more our uncertainty increases. If we look at Ray, for example, if he looks at the rest of today, will I be okay today? Yeah, I will. Hopefully, Ray believes he will be. Hopefully, everyone listening to this believes, yeah, I'll be okay today. But what happens is if you think, oh, will I be okay over the next 3 days? Yeah. 3 weeks? 3 months? No, my business is screwed, whatever. So when you're in a time of uncertainty and you want to increase your certainty, look right in front of you. Don't look anywhere else. It's like a car driving at night. If you can see the headlamps and a few meters in front of you, you don't worry about anything else. You just know, as long as I can see just in front of me, and I put my attention and my focus and my energy on what's in front of me, I can have the most in this moment, whether driving a car, whether going through your day. Sorry, and the last thing is if you just look ahead of you and you're constantly thinking about what's going to happen or what might not happen, it's like driving your car with your headlights off. And that is freaking scary. That is scary for anyone. So right now, we need to not be driving with our headlights off. We need to keep our headlights on and keep our attention just on what's going on in our vehicle and right in front of our feet.
Thank you, JP.
You're welcome.
Ray responded, and she said, "I hear you, and I appreciate
Oh,
your
sorry.
perspective." No, it's Ray. Ray, Raye.
Okay.
So I hear you and appreciate your perspective. It will be my truth, and there's lots of messages reaching out to her.
Awesome.
These
Well,
are
my love to you.
thank you. These are our final minutes. I'd love to have more time, and I know we're going a little over, but I'll take this. I'll take the blame with the team until Chris comes in and says, "Guys, I need to throw you out for the next session." In London, you were supposed to touch on how to make 2020 your best year yet.
Yeah.
And you talked about um, reaching out to others, serving others, reaching to a higher purpose and higher self. In moments like this, when people are deep in fear and uncertainty, how can we reach out, pay forward as leaders? Because there's lots of spa owners, spa managers, and directors listening to our talk today. How can you help them make 2020 their finest hour?
Awesome. So I'm going to keep this short, clear, and concise, but powerful. When I went through my accident, it was the most challenging thing I'd ever been through in my life, including my father's suicide. But it was also one of the best years of my life. And it's because I chose to make it not about me. I chose to not live in my head, but to live in my heart. And when we live in our heart, we're always in service to others. So what I would suggest is this, and I promise anyone listening to this, that this will forever keep your life in a good, healthy, happy state. You'll have moments of depression. You'll have moments of anxiety, moments of fear. You're a human being, right? We're all human beings. We're going to have these moments, but they will never go longer than a moment, because your nature, after practicing it for so long and building the muscle, your nature will be, I live in service to others. Study altruism. Study how to live an altruistic life. Think about Nelson Mandela. The late Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, but he never focused on himself. And if you read his books, and I've read his books, and you watch his videos, he'll tell you, I wasn't suffering. I wasn't in prison. I was preparing. You see, even in the midst of his worst circumstances, he was not focused on himself. If he can get through 27 years of living in a cell that I could barely fit into, with a smile on his face, with a vision in his heart, and a dream in his mind, then we can get through coronavirus and whatever business challenges we're facing. And it's to be non-negotiable about getting out of yourself and into others, into the service of others. Nelson Mandela, most people don't know the story, that when he was on Robben Island, where he spent 20 years of his 27 years, he used to run around and he used to tell all the guards, that you need to study. You need to study. You need to be educating yourself. Just like I'm studying and reading books every day, you need to be studying. And he became best friends with a guard. And he said, please, you need to be studying. Our country needs you to educate yourself. This is a man in prison for life, right? He probably wasn't thinking that he'd ever get out. Probably he was thinking that, but there was a chance that he might not have ever got out of prison. And he's studying and he's studying and he's telling everyone to study around him, right? Like us, inspirational leaders getting on Instagram right now and Facebook and, spa, World Spa and Wellness, you're serving. And this guard said, nah, man, I don't need to study. And he was so, remember I told you, be non-negotiable, be obsessed about serving others, that Nelson Mandela snuck a letter out of prison to the guards, to his prison guard's wife. And it said in Afrikaans, not even Nelson Mandela's native tongue, not even his second language of English or his third language of English, but he learned how to speak Afrikaans, and he wrote in Afrikaans a letter to his wife and said, please tell your husband to study, our country needs it. So the short answer for that is, every single time you're in fear, I'm telling you now, with humility, but with love and kindness, it's because you're focused on you. Because you can't, when you're in service to others, you're not in fear, you're in love, you're in gratitude, you're in appreciation. And love and fear can't be present in the same place.
Thank you, JP. Thank you so very much. As you were speaking, there were lots of positive messages on the YouTube live chat. A lot of people want to follow each other, support each other. Of course, I posted the link to your Instagram account so they can follow you and they can receive more messages with your content, with your inspiration. And thank you for reminding us to live in our heart and not in our head. It reminds me that someone said that, but as you said, you remind people of things, you rekindle that light inside of us. And sometimes when in life there are things thrown at us and that light is almost out, you are the kind of people that can really rekindle. I remember that someone said, the hardest path sometimes in life is about 20 centimeters or 30 centimeters long. It's not that long a path. It's about a step, but it's the 20 centimeters between your head and your heart. Or maybe that's more than 20 centimeters, but it's going to be a very short head and a very short trunk. But you know, it's or half a meter. Let's live there. Thank you so very much for this time.
If I can say just one short more thing.
Please, of course.
I often say to people that, different but same to your story, the most difficult thing about running a marathon is putting on your shoes. Because once you put on your shoes, you're like, okay, let's go. But it's that little decision to just go from there to there, to go from how am I going to do this to why am I going to do this, to go from, oh, I don't want to do this, or actually this is how it's going to benefit and inspire all the people that I work with. Live from your heart, serve from your heart, and always remember that being the greatest leader in the world, and the greatest leaders already know this, starts with leading yourself. It starts with influencing yourself. Do not look outside until you've mastered your inside. Otherwise, you're always going to live a limited life. And all those areas of influence that I mentioned, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, is all about raising your energy. That's what I teach, is how to raise your energy to the highest level. Because when you raise your energy, you change your life. And no one changes their life until they raise their energy. Because your energy and your life are a direct match. Thank you again.
Thank you, JP. I guess, Chris,
should I say goodbye?
Yes, I think it's time to say goodbye. Chris could pull the plug anytime. He's a great guy. If you guys met Chris, you'll love him, but he's just about to pull the plug. So
okay, thank you.
Bye.